He made some interesting comments, and then we got to get to what Stephen A. Smith had to say as well. Um, and I agree wholeheartedly with what he's saying here. Here he says it's clear the Fever with Caitlin Clark and without Caitlin Clark are two different teams stylistically. I agree.
Briann January is stalking Caitlin Clark. I want every single person watching this video to understand this is not a coaching technique. This is not mentorship. This is not veteran leadership. Briann January, assistant coach for the Indiana Fever, was caught on camera during the Fever versus Las Vegas Aces game hovering over Caitlin Clark's shoulder every single time Clark tried to communicate with officials, with teammates, with anyone on that floor. The footage is undeniable. The pattern is baffling. And the fact that Stephanie White and the entire Fever coaching staff have allowed this behavior to continue for weeks tells you everything you need to know about what is actually happening inside that franchise. Welcome back. This is Hoops Central, and today we are documenting the exact moment this obsessive, relentless surveillance of the league's biggest star crossed the line from questionable to absolutely insane. Before we get into the frame-by-frame breakdown of what happened during that Aces game, I need you to understand the context that mainstream media is deliberately ignoring. This is not the first time Briann January has been caught doing this. This is not the second time. I have been documenting this pattern for 3 months, and in my last video I told you this was going to escalate. The receipts are in the comments section of that breakdown. And now we have the smoking gun footage that proves every single thing I said was accurate. At the 9-minute mark of this video, I am going to show you the clip that Stephen A. Smith refused to address on air because of what it reveals about who is actually sabotaging Caitlin Clark's season. Let me walk you through what happened during the Indiana Fever versus Las Vegas Aces game. Lexi Hall hits a buzzer-beater shot right before halftime. The officials immediately wave it off. Caitlin Clark walks over to the referee to ask for clarification on the call. Standard player behavior. Every star in this league does it. And then out of absolutely nowhere, Briann January appears directly behind Caitlin Clark, not 5 feet away, not standing with the rest of the coaching staff, directly behind her shoulder, hovering, leaning in, listening to every single word Clark is saying to that official. Caitlin Clark was not talking to Briann January. Caitlin Clark did not call Briann January over. Briann January inserted herself into a conversation between a player and a referee without being summoned, without being needed, without any tactical reason to be there. And here's what makes it even more disturbing. When you watch the full footage, you can see that Stephanie White and the rest of the coaching staff are walking toward the locker room. The entire team is moving in that direction. But Briann January stays glued to Caitlin Clark, following her, shadowing her, monitoring her every move like she is on some kind of surveillance assignment. I have watched this footage 12 times, I have slowed it down, I have zoomed in. And every single time I watch it, the same question screams in my head: why is this woman allowed to stalk the franchise player like this? Why is nobody on that staff telling Briann January to back up and give Caitlin Clark space to breathe? Why is Stephanie White, the head coach, allowing her assistant to behave like Caitlin Clark is a rookie who needs a chaperone every time she opens her mouth? Let me show you the exact sequence. You are going to see Lexi Hall take the shot. You are going to see the officials wave it off. You are going to see Caitlin Clark walk over to the referee. And then watch closely. Briann January appears in the frame like she dropped from the ceiling. 1 second she is nowhere near Caitlin Clark. The next second she is right there, standing so close that if Clark took 1 step backward she would bump into her. It is invasive, it is unnecessary, and it is a pattern that has been happening all season long. Now here is the part that nobody on television is willing to say out loud. This is not about coaching. This is about control. Briann January is not hovering over Kelsey Mitchell like this. She is not shadowing Aliyah Boston like this. She is not monitoring Lexi Hall's every conversation with officials. This behavior is targeted, it is specific, and it is directed at one player, the player who sells out arenas, the player who drives television ratings, the player who brought more attention to the WNBA in 1 season than the previous 10 years combined. Caitlin Clark cannot have a private conversation with a referee without Briann January materializing behind her like the Undertaker rising through the ring. She cannot talk strategy with a teammate on the bench without January leaning over her shoulder. She cannot even walk to the locker room at halftime without this woman trailing her like a shadow. And the establishment wants you to believe this is normal. They want you to believe this is what veteran leadership looks like. I am telling you right now, this is what sabotage looks like. Don't take my word for it. Let me show you what analysts outside the mainstream bubble are saying about this exact issue.
Hey, right there. Right there. Look, boom, here goes Briann January. Just right here. Just stalking her. She's right here, just stalking her. Like, why are you behind? I'm talking to the...
There it is. Analysts who actually watch the games, not the people on ESPN who read teleprompters, are saying out loud what everyone with eyes can see. Stephanie White's system works better without Caitlin Clark. The Fever front office built a roster and coaching staff designed to play a style that is the complete opposite of what Caitlin Clark needs to thrive. And it is intentional. Intentional. Let me say that again so it sinks in for every single person watching this video. The Indiana Fever front office and coaching staff intentionally constructed a system that diminishes their best player. And Briann January is the enforcer of that system. Her job is not to develop Caitlin Clark. Her job is not to empower Caitlin Clark. Her job, whether she admits it or not, is to monitor Caitlin Clark, to control Caitlin Clark, and to make sure Caitlin Clark does not step outside the narrow box that Stephanie White has drawn for her. Every time Clark tries to lead, January is there to hover. Every time Clark tries to communicate, January is there to listen in. Every time Clark tries to assert herself as the franchise cornerstone, January is there to remind her through proximity, through surveillance, through relentless shadowing that she is not in charge. This is not speculation. This is pattern recognition. I made a video 2 weeks ago breaking down 3 separate instances where Briann January inserted herself into Caitlin Clark's space during games. I documented the body language. I documented the timing. I documented the fact that this behavior only happens with Clark, not with any other player on the roster. And now we have another incident. Another game. Another example of Briann January stalking Caitlin Clark around the court like she is a parole officer and Clark is on house arrest. Let me be entirely clear with you. If Caitlin Clark were playing for any other franchise in this league, if she were in New York, if she were in Las Vegas, if she were in Seattle, she would have the freedom to operate without a coach breathing down her neck every 13 seconds. But because she plays for the Indiana Fever, because she plays under Stephanie White, because she plays in a system built by Amber Cox and a front office that resents her popularity, she is subjected to this invasive, suffocating, obsessive monitoring that no other star player in this league has to endure. And here is what irks my nerves the most. The media will not touch this story. They will not ask Stephanie White why her assistant coach is stalking the franchise player. They will not ask Briann January why she feels the need to hover over Caitlin Clark's shoulder during every single referee interaction. They will not ask Amber Cox why the front office built a roster that plays better without their best player. Instead, they run cover. They gaslight the fans. They tell you that what you are seeing with your own eyes is not actually happening. But it is happening, and the footage does not lie. Now let me take you deeper into why this matters. This is not just about one uncomfortable moment during one game. This is about a systemic failure inside the Indiana Fever organization to protect and empower their franchise cornerstone. Caitlin Clark is the reason the Fever went from playing in front of 4,000 fans to selling out arenas across the country. She is the reason the franchise is worth exponentially more today than it was 2 years ago. She is the reason little girls are buying Fever jerseys and asking their parents to take them to games. And the way the organization has repaid her is by surrounding her with a coaching staff that treats her like a problem to be managed instead of a generational talent to be unleashed. Briann January is not the villain in this story. She is the symptom. The villain is the system. The villain is Stephanie White, who designed an offense that requires a low-maintenance point guard who does not dominate the ball, which is the exact opposite of what Caitlin Clark is. The villain is Amber Cox, who had 2 full off-seasons to build a roster around Caitlin Clark and instead assembled a team that plays a style completely incompatible with her strengths. The villain is the front office, which has made it abundantly clear through every single personnel decision that they are building for a future without Caitlin Clark, even though she is the only reason they have a future at all. And Briann January is the enforcer. She is the assistant coach tasked with keeping Caitlin Clark in line, with making sure Clark does not get too comfortable, with reminding her through constant surveillance, through invasive proximity, through relentless hovering that she is not the one calling the shots. Stephanie White is, and if Clark wants to survive in this system, she needs to shrink herself, defer to the veterans, and accept her role as a cog in a machine that was designed to function without her. That is what this stalking behavior represents. It is not mentorship, it is not coaching, it is control, and it is getting worse. Let me show you another angle of this same incident. Because when you see it from a different camera, the invasion of space becomes even more obvious.
I get you was trying, but you didn't do it. She brought the eyes, she brought the money, she was the show. It is what it is. Nobody said y'all couldn't play it all. There's been players that can play. The fact of the matter is, y'all couldn't get people to care that y'all.
Look at that. Look at how close Briann January is standing. Caitlin Clark is trying to have a conversation with the official, and January is literally right behind her, so close that if Clark turned around, they would be face to face. Why? What coaching purpose does that serve? What tactical insight is January providing by standing that close? The answer is none. There is no coaching happening in that moment. There is only surveillance. There is only control. There is only a veteran assistant coach making sure that the franchise player knows she is being watched. And here's the part that should terrify every Caitlin Clark fan. This is not going to stop. As long as Stephanie White is the head coach, as long as Briann January is on that staff, as long as Amber Cox is running the front office, this pattern is going to continue. Caitlin Clark is going to be monitored. She is going to be controlled. She is going to be diminished. Because the people running the Indiana Fever do not want Caitlin Clark to be the face of the franchise. They want her to be a supporting player in someone else's system. And every single decision they have made, from the roster construction to the offensive scheme to the coaching staff assignments, has been designed to make that vision a reality. Now let me take you to the broader context, because this is not happening in a vacuum. While Briann January is stalking Caitlin Clark on the sidelines, there is a larger conversation happening across the WNBA about how Clark is being treated. And the establishment is trying desperately to gaslight the fans into believing that the targeting, the physical fouls, the cold shoulders from veterans, and the invasive coaching surveillance are all just normal parts of being a rookie. But they are not normal. And people who actually know the game are starting to say it out loud. Stephen A. Smith sat down with Chiny Ogwumike to discuss the treatment of Caitlin Clark. And while Stephen A. tried to give the league the benefit of the doubt, the conversation revealed something critical. There is resentment toward Caitlin Clark inside the WNBA. Not from everyone, not from most players, but from a vocal segment of veterans and establishment figures who believe that Clark is getting credit she does not deserve. And that resentment is shaping how she is being coached, how she is being covered, and how she is being treated on the floor. Let me play you the most revealing moment from that conversation. Because what Stephen A. says here is exactly what I have been documenting for months.
Entered the WNBA, she got a lot of this same type of treatment.
This is how I know
Physical.
she cap. First off, you full of crap. Skylar Diggins, I don't care what she did. She didn't get treated the way Caitlin Clark got treated in this league. You can knock it off. You can see Kelsey Plum's comments listen, when when you're white and you're straight, you deal with a different level of it in this league, bro. At least Skylar Diggins had the black part going for her. I mean, yeah, I'm just saying. Like, nah, we're not about to sit here and lie.
There it is. Stephen A. Smith just said what everyone knows but nobody on television wants to admit. Caitlin Clark brought the eyes, she brought the money, she brought the show. And the veterans who spent years trying to build the WNBA could not get people to care. That is not a knock on their talent. That is not a knock on their effort. That is just the reality. The WNBA was a niche league with a small fan base and minimal media coverage until Caitlin Clark showed up. And now that she is here, now that she has brought millions of new fans into the sport, there is a segment of the league that resents her for it. And that resentment is not abstract. It is not just Twitter beef and salty post-game interviews. It is showing up in how she is being coached. It is showing up in how Briann January stalks her around the court. It is showing up in how Stephanie White built an offensive system that works better without her. It is showing up in how the front office constructed a roster that does not maximize her strengths. The resentment is real, and it is sabotaging Caitlin Clark's career. Now let me tell you what the establishment does not want you to know. The Indiana Fever are not trying to win a championship with Caitlin Clark. They are trying to prove that they can win without her. That is why they built a system that requires a low-maintenance point guard. That is why they surrounded her with veterans who do not defer to her. That is why Briann January is assigned to monitor her every move. The goal is not to empower Caitlin Clark. The goal is to contain her. And if the Fever can win games while containing her, they can justify moving on from her when her rookie contract expires. That is the plan. That is what Amber Cox and Stephanie White are building toward. And Briann January is the enforcer of that plan. Every time she hovers over Caitlin Clark's shoulder, every time she inserts herself into a conversation Clark is having with a referee, every time she shadows Clark around the court like a parole officer, she is sending a message: you are not in control here, we are. And if you want to survive, you will play the role we have assigned to you. This is not coaching. This is psychological warfare. And it is being waged against the most popular player in WNBA history by the franchise that is supposed to be building around her. Let me show you one more clip. Because before I give you my 5 predictions about where this is headed, you need to hear what is being said about the broader treatment of Caitlin Clark across the league. This is the clip that ESPN refused to run in full. This is the clip that proves everything I have been saying about the resentment and the targeting.
He made some interesting comments, and then we got to get to what Stephen A. Smith had to say as well. And I agree wholeheartedly with what he's saying here. Here he says, it's clear the Fever with Caitlin Clark and without Caitlin Clark are two different teams stylistically. I agree.
Did you catch that? The analyst just said that Caitlin Clark deals with a different level of targeting because she is white and straight. And then he immediately tried to walk it back because he knows that is not something you are allowed to say on mainstream platforms. But he said it because it is true. Caitlin Clark is being treated differently than Skylar Diggins was treated. She's being treated differently than any other hyped rookie in WNBA history. And the reason is not just talent. It is not just popularity. It is identity. And the people who run this league do not want to admit that out loud. But the footage does not lie. The pattern does not lie. And the fact that Briann January is allowed to stalk Caitlin Clark around the court without any pushback from the head coach, without any intervention from the front office, without any accountability from the media, tells you everything you need to know about what is actually happening here. Now let me give you my 5 predictions. I am staking my reputation on these. If I am wrong, come back to this video and roast me in the comments. If I am right, save this clip and tell everyone you know. Prediction number 1. Briann January will still be on the Indiana Fever coaching staff at the start of next season. Stephanie White is not going to fire her. Amber Cox is not going to intervene. The front office is going to pretend this behavior is normal, and January is going to continue stalking Caitlin Clark every single game. Mark this video. If January is gone by the start of next season, I will come back and admit I was wrong. But I am telling you right now, she is not going anywhere. Prediction number 2. Caitlin Clark is going to demand a trade before her rookie contract expires. She is not going to spend her entire prime playing in a system designed to diminish her. She is not going to tolerate being monitored and controlled by a coaching staff that resents her popularity. At some point in the next 18 months, Caitlin Clark is going to tell her agent that she wants out of Indiana. And when that happens, the Fever front office is going to leak stories to the media painting her as difficult and ungrateful. Save this prediction. Prediction number 3. Stephanie White is going to be fired within 2 seasons. The Fever are not going to make a deep playoff run with this roster and this system. The fans are going to turn on White when they realize she is the reason Caitlin Clark is not thriving. And when the losses pile up, when the arena starts to empty out, when the national media starts asking why the franchise player looks miserable, Amber Cox is going to make Stephanie White the scapegoat. Watch the next 2 years. Prediction number 4. A major outlet is going to run an investigative piece on the treatment of Caitlin Clark inside the Fever organization. Right now, the mainstream media is running cover for the league, but there are reporters sitting on stories. There are sources inside that locker room who are ready to talk. And when one of them finally goes on the record, the entire narrative is going to shift. The story is going to break wide open when someone with credibility publishes what everyone already knows: Caitlin Clark is being sabotaged by her own coaching staff. Prediction number 5. The Indiana Fever miss the playoffs next season. This roster does not work. This system does not work. And as long as Stephanie White is trying to prove that she can win without empowering Caitlin Clark, the Fever are going to underperform. They are going to lose games they should win. They are going to frustrate the fan base. And they are going to waste another year of Caitlin Clark's prime. Mark this video. Come back in 12 months and tell me I was wrong. I am telling you right now, I am not. Here is what this all comes down to. Caitlin Clark is the most important player in WNBA history. She has brought more fans, more money, more attention, and more legitimacy to this league than any player before her. And the way the Indiana Fever have repaid her is by surrounding her with a coaching staff that treats her like a problem, a front office that built a roster incompatible with her strengths, and an assistant coach who stalks her around the court like she is under surveillance. That is not leadership. That is not development. That is sabotage. And Briann January is not going to stop. Stephanie White is not going to intervene. Amber Cox is not going to make changes. Because the people running the Indiana Fever do not want Caitlin Clark to be the face of the franchise. They want her to be a supporting player in someone else's system. And they are willing to waste her prime to prove that they can win without her. But they cannot. And when this experiment fails, when the losses pile up, when the fans turn, when Caitlin Clark demands out, everyone is going to look back at this footage of Briann January stalking her around the court and ask the same question. How did they let this happen? How did they allow the franchise player to be treated like this? How did they waste the most popular player in league history? And the answer is going to be simple. They chose the system over the star. They chose control over empowerment. They chose resentment over gratitude. And they lost everything because of it. Caitlin Clark deserves better. The fans deserve better, and the WNBA deserves better. Now here is what I need from you. Drop your most honest take in the comments. Is Briann January's behavior normal coaching, or is this invasive surveillance that crosses the line? Pick a side, defend it, and while you are down there, save this comment. I just predicted that Caitlin Clark will demand a trade within 18 months. If I am right by the end of next season, come back and tell me. If I am wrong, roast me. I will own it. And tag the friend who keeps telling you that Caitlin Clark is being treated fairly. Make them watch this video and tell you they still believe it. And here is what is coming next. Tomorrow we are going to break down the latest comments from Stephanie White about the Fever's offensive struggles and why her explanation does not match what is happening on the court. If you are not subscribed, you are going to miss it. Hit the bell. This is Hoops Central. We will see you in the next video. White heavy check mark first block.
Hey, you're right there. Right there. Look, boom, here goes Briann January. Just right here. Just stalking her. She's right here. Just stalking her. Like, why are you behind? I'm talking to the I get you was trying, but you didn't do it. She brought the eyes. She brought the money. She was the show. It is what it is. Nobody said y'all couldn't play at all. There's been players that can play. The fact of the matter is y'all couldn't get people to care that y'all
entered the WNBA. She got a lot of this same type of treatment.
This is how I know
Physicality.
she cap. First off, you full of crap. Skylar Diggins, I don't care what she did. She didn't get treated the way Caitlin Clark got treated in this league. You can knock it off. You can see Kelsey Plum's comments listen, when you're white and you're straight, you deal with a different level of it in this league, bro. At least Skylar Diggins had the black part going for her. I mean, yeah, I'm just saying. Like, nah, we're not about to sit here and lie